evolution is an amazing thing, which we can track through observations of skeletons of early humans, Neanderthals, by looking at their bone densities and structures compared to modern humans based on their usage. I will also later examine how humans have evolved into bipedal creatures by comparing structural differences of the lower body of primates and humans. So this first image that we have here to examine bone densities, it's for early human evolutions. And as one can see on the microscopic level, there has been a steady decline of trabecular bone density. It can be hypothesized that this is due to usage. And as can be seen with the last two images, both of which are Neanderthals, the hunter has a higher compact bone content than the agriculturalist. And this is probably because the hunter was out carrying heavier loads, running, chasing prey. So they put a lot more stress on their bones, evolving to a higher compact bone density. So I know that this image is familiar as it was in one of the labs, but it was also the only one that I could find that truly showed modern Homo sapiens bone density. So the same difference that we saw in the last slide can be seen here. We have had the modern human has a much lower trabecular bone content than any of our forebear ancestors, right? And it makes sense because as a society that has become largely sedentary due to increased technological use, our bone density has also decreased. And we are sitting, we are driving cars, just there's a lot more. And this can be a problem because it creates weaker bones and can lead to more diseases such as osteoporosis. But taking a look at the larger scale of difference in usage and the effect that it has on bone, this may seem like a very technical image, but the red lines show the outline of the Neanderthal humerus bone compared to the black outline of a modern human. Distinguished shape differences can be seen. So if A is an anterior view, then we see a posterior view and a superior view. The most prominent difference is that at 41, that the humeral head of the Neanderthal is much more pronounced. And this makes sense since Neanderthals had an overall stronger upper body than modern humans do. Their chest, shoulders, and arms were under a lot more stress, and this is how bones reacted to that stress. These raised portions are where some of the most stress was placed. So moving to the evolution of bipedalism, one can compare the structures between the femur and the os coxa of a human versus that of a baboon. And baboons have the ability to walk upright, but it is certainly not as efficient, and it can be painful to them due to the lack of structures that make bipedalism possible for humans. So first, we'll look at the femur. And how does this femur of the primate compare to the femur of the modern human? So on the left side, we have the femur of the baboon, and on the right side, we have that of the human. As you can see on the left, the femur is located laterally, which you can tell by the size and location of the great trochanter. And the limb is also much shorter in length, which it might be hard to visualize that difference as both these pictures are the same size, but you can tell by the scale that the human femur is a much larger bone, longer bone. So if I didn't tell you which one was that of the human and which one was the femur of the baboon, how would you be able to tell which one's the bipedal and which one's the quadrupedal one? It's the angle at which the head of the femur inserts with the os coxa that reveals this. A bicondyl angle is most energy efficient for upright walking, and it is not found in quadrupedal animals, babies, or people who have never had the ability to walk. If both these bones were placed on a flat surface, the humans would go at an angle. The femur of the baboon would remain straight. This straight positioning that the knees are placed and located right below the hips. there's not an angle as with humans. So this straight femur signifies that the baboons don't have a stance in the gait cycle where only one limb could support their whole body weight. So now looking at the os coxa posterior view, how does the os coxa compare between the primate and the modern human? So one major observable difference is that the os coxa of a human is much wider. The ilium is much more laterally flared in humans. In turn, it's much smaller and looks taller in baboons. So they also have a smaller iliac crest, and which is the attachment point for the gluteus maximus muscle. And in proportion to the smaller iliac crest, baboons also have a smaller gluteus maximus muscle. And this is okay because they are being stabilized by their forearms whenever they're walking, and they don't ever have a need for standing on one limb. But since the iliac crest is much more laterally flared in humans, the gluteus medius and the gluteus minimus muscles have the ability to attach laterally, which is what activates mid-stance during the gait cycle. This abduction is what allows humans to be supported by one limb, and it contributes to balance. The much smaller iliac crest of baboons allows for attachment of the gluteus minimus and medius muscles as well, but they attach at the posterior side, making them work as extensors rather than working as abductors. And finally, we have this lateral view of the os coxa, and so as you can see at the bottom here, the ischial tuberosity is a much larger structure on the bone in baboons. It is due to the placement of the os coxa being placed posteriorly in them. This much larger ischial tuberosity present in baboons is where the hamstring attaches. So once again, they have very powerful ability for hip extension, but it comes at a decreased range of motion. Based on their usage, though, this is important for baboons as they're doing lots of climbing, as with a lot of farming.